Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new tier and a new set of boss reviews. This time we are going over tier 11.2 Maniforge Omega. This time we are talking about Soulbinder Naz something. I believe he could be either second or third boss. He's the third boss listed in the dungeon journal. Just like with the other boss review videos, I'm going to go over a short overview of the fight. And then we're going to look at the specific mechanics while watching the boss video, talk about each one of them. And after that, we can look at potential optimizations that the raid and individual players may have and cover anything specifically for each role if there's anything important. With that said, let's get started with the overview. This boss has a sort of P1 and then intermission and then back to P1 flow. However, it's not really an intermission, it's just P1 continuing on while a bunch of ads spawn. So the general idea of the fight is you can sort of see these circles around the room. They are effectively going to be canisters that an ad is inside of. While the ad is inside the canister, they aren't doing anything. There's on Mythic 12 total canisters around the room. There's 4 in the middle, so you can see these 2. You can imagine there's 2 more right behind those. And then there's 2 on this side, 2 mirrored on the other side. And then the entire room is mirrored as well behind where my current screen is. So 12 total canisters in sort of a 2-2, 4 in the middle, 2-2 pattern. The idea of the fight is that the boss will do some mechanics that allow you to break the canisters, but only a certain number of canisters. And you can effectively break out certain ads that you choose to kill them during the regular part of the phase, because after the regular part of the phase, the intermission is that the boss will spawn all of the rest of the ads that you have not broken out, and they will all become active and you have to kill them while they're all doing their mechanics. Currently on testing, if you break out an ad from the canister, it doesn't do anything. It's just broken out. It's doing this really long cast where at the end of the cast, the ad will become active. They're all doing the same cast even when they're in the canisters. That's what actually ends up breaking them out and to start the intermission. So when you individually break out ads using the boss's mechanics, they don't do anything. They actually just gain 100% damage taken, so you can kill them really quickly. It sort of makes this fight a little too simple. There's not really much going on. I feel like they're either going to tune things up pretty heavily for live or potentially add a mechanic or change how the ads work. If they make the ads active when you break them out, maybe that'll be a little bit better, but that's all speculative. So we'll just cover what actually happened on testing. So the flow of the fight is that the boss will put out a certain number of mechanics. On testing, it was 2 that allow you to break out ads, 1 each. And he will do that 3 times for a total of 6 ads that can be broken out in P1 that won't do anything when they're broken out, and you can just kill them. And after that 3rd set of mechanics, the boss will break out all the remaining ads, and those ads will be active. And there's 3 different types of ads that each has their own mechanic, but we'll get into that later. The current timing of the fight is that P1 lasts for 2 minutes, and then at exactly 2 minutes into the fight, the boss spawns all the other ads. And it sort of works on that 2-minute timeline, with the intermission being roughly 30 seconds. So you'll get P1 for 2 minutes, he'll break out the ads, and then for 30 seconds, you'll be dealing with ads before he starts doing P1 again and allows you to break out new ads. And then you'll do that for 2 minutes. So the ad breakout timings of the fight will be at 2 minutes, 4 minutes and 30, and then 7 minutes if the fight lasted that long, but I don't think it will. So let's get into the actual boss video to show you what some of the mechanics are. So you can see that we marked some positions just to help us out. You're likely going to do that on live as well. On testing, it's important to note that the boss mechanics to break out adds from the canisters actually had a fairly short range. So I'll go over those mechanics a little bit now before we see them so that you can kind of understand what's happening. The mechanic that is used to break the adds out of the canisters is looks like a beam targeting a player from the boss. That player can move that beam around, so they will effectively move behind a canister. And then after a couple of seconds, the boss is going to fire an orb at that player. It is not actually a beam that fires. It is a projectile orb from the boss. That orb will hit anything in its path and then go away. So if it accidentally hits a player, you just missed breaking an ad out. So the idea is that the boss targets 2 players with these targeting beams. Those 2 players go run behind a canister. Eventually the boss will fire an orb at that path. It hits the canisters. It breaks the adds out. I found on testing that these orbs only travel roughly 20 yards. If they don't hit anything in that 20 yards, they'll actually come back to the boss and hit anything in their path. This means that you're actually sort of limited in what you can do with how you want to break the adds out. When people were first looking at this boss, they thought it might be like a Lahuvum or something where you can kind of choose your path, or Ovanax where you can choose which adds to break out and get really creative with it. It seems a little bit more limited than that because of the orbs. You can't really just break out any adds in the room. You have to break out exactly what's around the boss, which means you're always breaking out the 2 closest to the boss. Maybe one of those is one that you want to break out. Say, since there's 3 adds, they're mages, assassins, and phase blades. Say you want to break out all the mages, and there's a mage here. So you want to break out this one, but you don't really want to break out this one. What if you want to break out the mage over here? You can't, because the orb's not going to travel that far. So you can only actually break out these 2. So you break out the mage and whatever this is. What that really leads to on testing is that you just break out these 2, you break out these 2, and then you break out 2 in the middle, and that's it. You don't really choose much of anything else because it's probably not worth it. The room is pretty big. If you try to specifically choose to break out a certain ad somewhere, you're probably going to be running a lot, which doesn't really sound optimal, especially for like a third boss where it's probably not necessary. I guess before showing this, I should talk about the Mythic changes, since this is a Mythic VOD. There's only really 2 changes, I think. There's one main one, and then there's a knockback that I'm not sure if the knockback happens on Heroic or not. But the main mechanic of Mythic is that a bunch of players, I think 4 or 5, will get targeted by what looks like Kai'Veza orbs, if you did Kai'Veza in Nerebar Palace, where they will have 5 directional beams coming out of their body, and you'll see it coming soon. And out of these beams, orbs are going to shoot it. There. This also happens on Heroic. The difference on Mythic is that you now have to hit this canister with one of these orbs before you can hit the canister with the boss mechanic that'll actually break the ad out. So this is the ad in the canister. The difference on Mythic is that each canister has a sigil protecting it. This sigil cannot be broken unless it's hit by an orb from this mechanic. If you try and break this ad out from the boss orb and this sigil is still active, it won't work. It won't do anything. So you're always going to have to hit each canister with an orb from this mechanic called Convergence, apparently. And that will break the sigil When the sigil breaks, the entire raid gets a heal absorb. So healers would need to know that. And then you can hit the actual canister with the boss mechanic. So we'll take a look at that now. You can see that a bunch of players are getting targeted. It looks like 4. They actually all get targeted staggered. So that kind of ruins being able to stack with those in a certain spot. But it's really not that big a deal. The orbs traveled pretty slow. And then you'll see over here, 2 players are targeted by the actual boss line mechanic, which will shoot an orb at them after like 5 or 6 seconds. So these players are the ones that need to get behind the canisters. So you can see now that this canister no longer has a sigil. Same with that one over there, because the orbs hit it. The raid had a healing absorb. They got healed off. And these players should be going behind the canisters. You're actually going to see this person mess up. They aren't standing behind the canister. So you'll see that their orb will never hit the canister. So it shoots out, it hits the player right there, and does not break out the ebb. So you don't want to do that on live. You just want to go behind the canister. The canisters are not line of sight. So you could just go behind them if you're a ranged player and just keep blasting melee. Unfortunate, you get out of melee range for a couple seconds. It's life. And then you just kill this ad. It doesn't do anything while it's broken out until this cast finishes, which it won't because they have 100% damage taken increase. So you're just nuking the ad. The other mythic mechanic is coming here, which is the knockback. The boss is going to knock everyone back about 30 yards or so. It knocks you very high into the air. And when you land, it will spawn a pool of bad stuff at your feet. This is important because it's very specifically where you land, which means that if you blink the knockback, like I just did here, it's still going to spawn a pool underneath you when you land, and you will still have to run out for that. So there's going to be obvious optimizations here of keeping the raids stacked together, and you'll actually see an optimization that somebody was testing here. Don't know if it'll go live like this, but Walla was actually standing in this corner and does not get knocked back because he's standing next to this sort of bump in the ground. You see that he's still there. Now it does still, it does. It spawns a pool on the ground under him. Very delayed though. I'm not sure if he was actually technically like in the air for this whole travel time. Let's see if he keeps casting. It looks like he keeps casting. Yeah. So that is a potential optimization that you could just have your entire raid stack on the wall so nobody gets knocked back. The other thing would just be having your entire raid stack on one position. So when you get knocked and land, all of the pools are in the same spot. They would take up way less space than this. Other than that, that is pretty much all of P1. You're just going to repeat this. The boss is going to put the orbs out on people. They will make sure they hit the canisters to break the sigils. And 2 players will get targeted for the break canister mechanic. So you can see I get it this time. I just blink over behind the canister. The orbs come out and break out the ads. This is why I say it seems a little too simple because there's nothing else really happening in P1. You have a knockback and you have 2 mechanics that you have to aim, but are only on a total of 6 people, 4 for the 5 points orbs and 2 for the other orbs. That's not really a lot. There's not much else going on. And there's a knockback. You can get knocked off the edge. You'll see Walla tried to do the no knockback on the nub again and missed. You can get yourself back though. Walla's a boomkin, so he can just turn around and disengage back. I'm a mage, so I can just blink before I'm too far over the edge and it's not a problem. But a bunch of classes can't do that, so you got to be careful. Again, on live, it's going to be easy. Your raid plan is just going to tell you where to stand, and you're just going to do that. One thing that is important to note is you don't want to over break sigils on the canisters if you're not going to be breaking those adds out. At least on testing, there was no penalty for having sigils still on canisters by the time the boss breaks all the adds out at 2 minutes. It didn't like put all of the heal absorbs on the raid if there was still sigils left. So you don't actually want to break all of the sigils. Like you wouldn't want to go up here to the top left and break those adds out, because it puts a heal absorb on the raid for every one you break. And if you don't need to break them out, that's just extra healing that you avoid. So you only really want to break out the canisters that you're actually going to hit with the boss mechanic. Now in the middle, you might end up breaking out all 4 of these just because they're so close together. But you can see that I can see 3 other people in middle trying to break the sizzles here. So I know I don't need to go anywhere near that. They're going to have it covered. So I could just stay out here, shoot my orbs kind of outside of the raid, and not put any more heal absorbs on the raid. So you see again, the player's targeted, go behind the adds, they break them out. This last ad set is fairly close to the timing of when all the ads are going to spawn. So about 13 seconds before the main ads spawn. So you'll want to kind of kill them quickly so they don't turn into actual ads. And then at 2 minutes, boom, the boss spawns all the other ads. So like I said, there are 3 types of ads. There's a mage, there's an assassin, and there's a phase blade. Each one obviously has their own mechanics. The mage is a caster, of course, interruptible cast. On Mythic, every time you interrupt the cast, it gets 50% faster. And it's a single target nuke, and I believe a dot on the target as well. I don't remember the exact mechanic of either the phase blade or the assassin. I'm pretty sure the assassin is the one that puts a spread circle on a player and then like hits them, ambushes them, or whatever it's called. Yeah, it's ambush. So you can see this person just got targeted by it. He's got a circle. After a couple seconds, the assassin's going to hit him. If anybody else is in the circle, they'll take damage as well. I believe the phase blades are just wrecking the tank. And like each hit they do on the tank also does raid-wide damage. I think that's what they do. But pretty much you're just spawning all of these ads, getting them into the middle, and nuking them all down. This is our last pull, so we kind of played around with just lusting during the ads. And that turns out to be a really good idea, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is the entirety of the fight. You're just getting them in here, you nuke them down, you interrupt the mages. You may have to interrupt the mages once or twice to actually get them into the group, because all the ads are spawning from their canisters. But for the most part, the ads are just going to run in, and the tanks can taunt them, DKs can grip them in to get them stacked faster. I'm not sure if the ads were stunnable. Didn't really check because this fight was just way undertuned. We probably should have checked those things. But yeah, and then P1 starts again, and it starts with a knock, and then you just go back into it. And you're restarting. Canisters respawn, and you play the whole fight again. For tanks, the only real mechanic is your usual taunt swap. The important thing to note is that it leaves a debuff after the taunt swap mechanic. So the taunt swap mechanic does damage for like 5 seconds or something, and then it puts the debuff on you. It's not just a one hit and then done. So make sure you're aware of that. You're going to be taking damage over 5 seconds. For healers, important things to know is that you're going to want a DR or a throughput heal for every knockback that you're about to see right here. It's kind of like one of the hardest hitting things, but it doesn't even hit that hard. Maybe it'll be tuned up harder on live. Then you're also going to want a throughput CD on every convergence cast. Those are the ones that shoot the orbs that break the sigils, not the ones that break the ads out, because the sigils put heal absorbs on the entire raid. So you're going to want to have throughput CDs for every convergence set, because you know you're going to get heal absorbs afterwards. and you should aim them to be going off with the majority of their healing about 5 seconds after the convergence boss cast actually ends, because that's when the orbs are actually going to shoot them. And obviously some people are going to get hit by the orbs, so having throughput there will also help them. Everyone else should know if you get hit by an orb, you need to use a defensive, because you're also going to have a heal absorb on you at the same time. The raid also takes significant damage when the boss breaks out all of the ads that are left over. You can skip towards that here, the last one of the fight. So you'll see when the boss breaks out, boom, everybody gets hit. No heal absorbs though, so it's pretty easy to top up. You can all be stacked at that point as well, so healing will be pretty easy. The ads haven't spawned yet, so the raid's not taking any significant damage. As far as optimizations go, I wanted to go back here and talk about the lust timings. It is very likely that you just lust on pull and the boss dies and it's not a problem. If you did want to be optimal, or potentially you guys just want to parse and farm, there is a pretty valid reason for lusting at the ad spawns. So these ads spawn at basically exactly 2 minutes, which is going to work with most classes CDs without having to hold anything. The other benefit you get then, again, if you're trying to be optimal and you have smart players, is that any class that gains funnel damage onto the boss is going to have a field day with this scenario. Actually, very specifically, Arcane Mage is going to do massive damage in this scenario. So there's 6 ads plus the boss. That's 7 total targets. For those of you who don't right now, Arcane Mage gains insane amounts of priority damage onto the boss at increasing target counts up to 8 targets. I think Preheat just put out a video that at 8 targets for Arcane, it's roughly 40% damage increase to the main boss, which means you're going to have mages doing potentially the most AoE and the most single target boss damage in this same scenario, which will just make the boss die faster. So while it is fun to think of it as like, oh, we're just lusting at 2 minutes for pad, there's actually a valid reason that lusting at 2 minutes might also increase your boss damage overall, depending on how many mages you have and how many other funnel classes you have, because this funnel scenario is just massive. It also allows the ads to die faster. If the ads are actually dangerous on live, lusting at 2 minutes is perfectly valid, or lusting at 4:30, because that will be an execute. However, that one's probably less likely because 4:30 is going to be weird boss timings for most people to lust at. However, 2 minutes should work out just fine. As we talked about before, the stack for the knockbacks will be an optimization, but it'll really just be in the raid plan. Everyone will be stacked up to try and get knocked probably out of the way, off to the side or something, not in the main paths that you're going to be walking through. And that'll just keep the floor puddles to a minimum. You can pixel stack and basically just create one puddle. I also mentioned during the overview that people who are targeted by convergence aren't going to want to break out extra sigils. Like this person would actually not really want to go to middle right now because there's just no reason to do it. You gain more heal absorbs on the raid without really any benefit. You should just break out the 6 ads that you know you're going to break out in P1 to reduce the amount of healing that you have to do. For casters, you want to make sure you know when the long cast, when the knockback is coming, so you don't get stuck in a cast. On testing, I did it a couple of times where I accidentally got caught in shifting power while the knockback is going to happen. It sucks. You'll likely get used to it and never happen again after a couple of pulls like it did with me on testing. But just as a pay attention to, make sure you know when the knockback's going to go off so you're not in the middle of an important spell or a channeled cast and it gets interrupted. But I mean, for the pad, we could do it. Could,
Same amount of total damage, however fast you kill them.
could hold lust till 2 minutes. Doing it.
What's the 2 minutes?
Well, you're just stealing pad from each other, though, right? It's just not like I have more health when you lust at 2 minutes.
It's not pad, it's real damage.
It's real pad damage. Prepare for knock green.
I missed.
Knocking soon.
Yeah.
The boss that goes off is diabolical, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to move.
Oh, okay, that's fair. That actually is surprising that it moves during
Yeah, it's good to know, I guess.
Yeah.
I was trying to get into a spot to get knocked.
Knock.
Getting hit by these orcs is like not scary.
He just gets blurred for a long time. Wait, it reduces your haste. Yeah, that's illegal.
Yeah.
Knockback.
Yeah, it's toxic.
Oh my god.
Did they use LOS people or now?
No.
No.
Just checking.
Anyone have anything else they want to test?
I bet we can fuck this boss up.
This one's pretty straightforward.
I feel like I need to change the way it works. It's a little too silly.
Yeah, nothing does anything. It's just like
Yeah.
there's no like, oh shit, we got this ad out.
Yeah, there should be more. Like we're just picking random ads and none of them do anything. It doesn't matter.
There's also like no choice. You just gotta go down the line. You don't have to think about what you're doing anyway.
Yeah, this is. Yeah.
What a boss! What a boss!